Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the chieftainess of my clan,
Sarah.
and today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Kingdomino Origins. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. Through tile drafting, players create their prehistoric kingdoms through domino-like gameplay. This version of the game has 3 modes of play, each one adding more difficulty. All right, Will, so how does this game change for 2 players?
So for 2 players, at the end of the rule book, they have a section for other rules, including 2 players. So 2 players will use all the tiles to create, instead of a 5x5 grid, a 7x7 grid. Additionally, they'll use 2 chieftains, and at the very start of the game, whoever gets chosen as the start chieftain will choose to put their chieftains on spots 1 and 4 or 2 and 3. From there, then it's just the order of chieftains and you play as normal. Now, it is important to mention that Kingdomino Origins is not compatible with Kingdomino, Queen Domino, or its other expansions of
The Age of Giants, I
Age
think?
of Giants. So that is its own thing. It's played very similarly, but it's not compatible with them.
Right.
So, yes. Those are all the changes for a 2-player.
And so there is no bot,
No Nanaman?
no Nanaman.
Not even a cave Nanaman?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
All right, let's look at some of the issues for a 2-player experience. We actually only really identified one, and that is the 7x7 grid can be a little overwhelming, especially with the higher difficulty modes.
Yeah, it's just a lot more to keep track of, especially if you accidentally put that one title because it fits perfectly over there and realize, oh, I'm also playing with the optional rules and now my thing's not in the center and it just stresses me out. So the spatial reasoning, it's a little bit easier to get lost in the 7x7 grid.
Yeah, so if you're using those optional rules to make your starting tile has to be in the center and you have to complete your square, building a 7x7 grid, and then also dealing with all of the new rules, it can be a little much.
Right. But fortunately, you don't have to play with
Right.
all of the rules. In fact, it recommends you going with the base version. And the nice thing is, it's more of a stepped up version. Each step it kind of takes into consideration some of the components and mechanisms before. It may not use everything, but it evolves it over time.
Agreed. So what it does well is there's only one opponent to keep track of, so it's easier to strategize on what tiles you're going to take, what's okay to leave, those kind of things.
Yeah, you can look over and go, yeah, she's gonna go for the lake. I better get it now because I desperately need it.
Right.
But then again, there's that other tile that has extra bits on it.
There's that. Another thing, which is a counterpoint to the potentially negative of building a 7x7 grid, well, the positive is each player gets more game. I mean, you're taking 2 tiles per round, placing them both out. You have more choices. You've got more going on. And so that can feel very rewarding.
Yeah, you just have more game, more things to do, and of course, bigger scores.
That's very true. All right, that's it for 2-player experience. So moving on to accessibility. The blue and green chiefs may blend for some people. We could not confirm that because with Will's severe vision, I don't think you...
They all blend together.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what color they are.
But
I can't see them.
Right. But for me, looking at the shades, they look somewhat similar. So just something to be aware of, to either make sure you choose a different color, because there's black and the other one was pink. So there are other options to that if they do present a problem, and that's only a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Much less hypothetical, the caveman tiles. The icons are a bit small. What that means is not that they aren't clear, it's just they're going to be hard to see from a distance. And so when there's that row of caveman tiles, until I guess you learn what each picture is, you'll be picking those up quite a bit to take a closer look at what they do and what you need to set up to utilize them.
Yeah, you will only use the caveman tiles in the final third most complex version of the game. And the reason why they're small is not only do they have to fit on a domino, but they're smaller than the domino's section, the half that it's going to sit on, just so you can also see what the terrain type is that it's actually standing on.
Right, exactly. And so kind of speaking of the caveman tiles, but also the new resource tokens, the game can be a little fiddly with just everything that's on the tiles. There's the fire tokens, and that's on from the very beginning mode. The very beginning mode introduces the fire tokens from the volcanoes. And then the second mode introduces the resource tokens. And then the third mode introduces the caveman tiles. So in the third mode, you're using everything. So it can be a little fiddly, and it's just kind of easy to knock things around. So it's just kind of being aware of that.
Yeah, if you're dexterity challenged, I would say just be careful with your board.
Yeah.
Because practically every domino will have something on it. It will have a fire token, it will have a resource token, it will have a caveman, or if it doesn't have any of that, it might have a printed fire token, printed fire on the token, icon on the thing. I think the deserts are the only thing that doesn't.
Right, but then you're more likely to put your cavemen and your fire on the desert, so still gonna have something.
Just expect a very full board,
right?
Especially if you're all the way up graduated, second mode and on.
Yeah,
you're starting to see a lot of those creep in.
Exactly. But what it does right is actually we found the terrain better identified than in the original Kingdomino. In the original Kingdomino, it never really, the rules didn't give you names for any of the terrains. And I know that's not a huge deal, but for us, because Will doesn't actually look at his board, I have to tell him what each type is. And I don't know, but for some reason, I always got the plains and the grasslands mixed up. And I'm not even sure if that was the right names for the original Kingdomino. But here, because it identifies which resources go on which terrain, it actually lists the name of every single terrain in the rules.
Or so, if she didn't even want to do that, she goes, the fish terrain.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that is. The mushroom, I know what that is.
Because in the lower left of each half that has a resource on it, it shows the little icon. So that's an identifying mark. So a small thing, but it kind of made a big impact on how we play the game.
Yeah.
On that token, the resource meeples are uniquely shaped, so that was very easy for Will to feel what they were. And in fact, you said it actually made some things easier, because then I hand him over a tile. In original Kingdomino, I'd have to remind him which half was which, because again, he wouldn't see it. But now there'd usually be a resource, or both sides have a resource. So sliding it over to him, he could literally just feel the resource and know what was it.
Yeah, provided I was careful with it and didn't knock them all off.
That's true.
But it also allowed me to then have something on my board that I could also feel and reference as well for previously placed dominoes. So I knew, oh, well, that's a mushroom, so that's a jungle. So I can also put this one that has a mushroom next to it.
Right. So it made, for you, placing your pieces easier.
Yes.
All the iconography is very clear. Again, even with the negative of the caveman tile iconography being small, it's still very clear.
Yeah.
And of course, the main thing that makes this game very, very accessible, it's all open information. So if anybody has any problems for any reason, hopefully someone else or using devices, that will help.
Yep.
Okay. Let's move on to a conclusion.
So, for 2 players, would you recommend Kingdomino Origins?
I would, assuming you don't get overwhelmed by the 7x7 grid. I play the original Kingdomino a lot on Board Game Arena, and I really enjoy playing it at the higher player counts because I only have to deal with a 5x5 grid. For my mental capacity for wanting a casual game, 5x5 is really good. 7x7 just takes a bit more work, but it's not that I don't like it. It's just I have to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah, for me, it is a 2-player game, pretty good. The only caveat I would actually put is if you have everything for Kingdomino plus all its expansions, I'm not sure you really need to rush out and get this.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, if you don't have anything, this is the one I would recommend. Mm-hmm. Because this one starts off a little bit more difficult than the base Kingdomino, and it has the graduation. It does things differently, so it's
Yes.
not the same game. But it does things differently, but the experience that I felt I got out of it felt like, well, it gave me all the expansion type experience I was getting from the previous one. So if you want a tighter, smaller package that's not going to break the bank in any way, stretch or form, Kingdomino Origins is the game I would actually recommend for people to pick up.
Agreed. So for accessibility challenges, would you recommend this?
Yes, because of everything being open information, any issues that do creep up or I have questions on, it's easy enough to ask someone else, like, what is that? And like, oh, that, okay, go. We're fine. And vice versa, if like Sarah forgets what a caveman does, she goes, what does this one do? And I tell her and like, oh yeah, okay, good. So we have help both ways.
Yep.
So very, very accessible game.
Agree 100%.
Okay, that will do it for us at Rolling with Two. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And don't ever be alone in your cave. Instead, you can be Rolling with Two.